Everybody, Jake here with TrendSpider to go over the weekend analysis into Monday, June 10th. And we've got some interesting stuff going on the Qs, SPY, and XBI. Starting with SPY, we do have a very distinct bounce off the monthly SMA 20, and you can see that here on the weekly candle. So we do have this falling channel, kind of fall. I wouldn't necessarily call it a falling wedge, but just this downward sloping channel finally broke out, and you can see that on the daily raindrop, and you can also see that on just the weekly candle. And so just a reminder, what a raindrop is essentially a volume-based candle with the first half of the period being on the left and the second half of the period being on the right. And you can see the volume profile is shown here throughout the day's range. So in this case, we can see that this huge little blip in volume here was concentrated near the top of the range for Friday. We did not have any volume in the second half of the day near these session lows. So that is something to consider into Monday, with a lot of the volume holding near the top of the day's range. And you can see we slightly had an uptick in volume here. And the MACD is possibly about to cross here. It's incredibly obvious, so I'm almost thinking, is it too obvious and people are going to break this down, because it looks like it's just going to absolutely rip here. However, based on the candlesticks, it does look like we could possibly continue up, and volume was pretty steady here on the weekly candle as well. Now, one thing that I would consider a possible bigger move would be the RSI breaking through the 60 area, and the MACD crossing, as well as the percent range getting back over the -15 area. So what I can do here is go in, create an alert, and we can say essentially SPY possible breakout expires in 30 days. The parameter would be the daily indicator MACD fast has crossed up through the daily MACD slow, and then the next parameter here would be the daily indicator Williams percent range has crossed up through the constant level of -15. And then finally, we're looking at the RSI, so the daily, let's say RSI above 60, so indicator relative strength index has crossed up through the constant level of 60. So when all of these become true, we will be alerted. So the alert's created, and now anytime you want to check the status of that, you can go into this alert menu and see what the status is. In this case, we did have a possible breakdown alert created on the Qs here, right here, and we can see the status. Some of these became true, but not all of them, and so we never got that alert. And so that's cool that you can see which conditions still need to become true in order for this full alert to trigger. So all in all, SPY is showing very bullish tendencies into the next week, just based on this breakout. I am not a certified analyst or anything like that, just showing kind of what I'm seeing on the chart and how you can use the TrendSpider platform to analyze some of this stuff. So moving on to the Qs, QQQ. We have a very similar setup here. We have the same breakout through this channel. We've got a very strong balloon candle, what I'm calling it here, on the raindrop. And the reason I call it a balloon is it kind of looks like this hot air balloon, if you will, where you can see the market seemed very thin here because not a lot of volume was required to push the price up, and then a lot of that volume was kind of centered then at the top of today's range. So with the bullish lower indicators that we have as well on the Qs, similar to SPY, we'll just have to see what happens. On the weekly candle, we almost have the same exact chart as SPY, with this breakout through the channel that we can see here, as well as that hard bounce off the monthly SMA. So that's really interesting to see, because the last time that we had this area, we did bounce off hard, but then we did continue down afterwards. So we'll just have to see what happens there. So notice that the Qs and SPY did not have the MACD cross yet, but when we go to XBI, you'll see that the MACD has already crossed here, but we have not actually crossed or bounced, for that matter, near the monthly SMA 20. So in this case, we can see, no, in this case, the SMA 20 from the monthly candle is way up here. So we are very much below that area on XBI, which is generally more of a speculative ETF, more of a kind of risky ETF if you're looking at volatility. So it's interesting to see that this is not following SPY in the Qs. However, we do have the MACD cross on the daily chart here for XBI, which we did not have yet for SPY in the Qs. So kind of an interesting situation. We do have a lot of that volume from Friday afternoon centered, really not centered, but focused at the very top of this price range for the day's session. And so we'll see if that continues into Monday with a lot of demand here clearly near the top of that range. So all in all, we could possibly continue up. Honestly, no one really knows, and you can only guess through technical analysis. And it's not guessing, it's applying patterns that have occurred in the past, looking at moving averages, looking at trend lines that are highly respected by price, and then getting a sense of where price can go from there. Nothing is guaranteed in the market, but using these different things as far as indicators and different manual process of technical analysis, and automating that through the TrendSpider platform, you can have a leg up in the game as far as having an edge and making your trading and technical analysis more efficient. So if you have any questions about the platform, any questions about our raindrops that are very unique to the TrendSpider platform, and as I mentioned, these are volume-based candles rather than open and close with the function as far as the color goes. So in this case, we're not green because of the open and close. We're green because the right side's VWAP is higher than the left side. So it's a different way of looking at how volume and price move and the equilibrium areas between open and close. So we will have more data on these raindrops as time goes on. But as I mentioned, anytime you have a question on these, we are happy to help. And please feel free to reach out and let us know if you find anything interesting with these raindrops. Any questions, hello@trendspider.com or any of our social media platforms @TrendSpider. And you could also reach out at hello@trendspider.com and we'd be happy to help. Everyone have a great weekend. Thank you so much for listening in, and we will have another video next week.